Hello everyone, welcome to Healthy Bridge Bites. This is Sabina here. First of all, I'd like to apologize. This was a live session, but due to technical issues, we have to do this as recorded. But feel free to ask your questions in the comment box. We'll reply you as soon as possible. So without further ado, let's welcome Simran here. Simran, first of all, is a multitasker. You will know why. Simran is the founder and community leader of 35,000 plus members in OMBC, known as a Wonderful Mom Bakers Community. And this is globally recognized award-winning healthy baking community. She is recognized by Sheryl Sherberg as one of the 8 influential Facebook community leaders in Asia. She's a TEDx speaker, she's a food blogger, she's a healthy baking influencer, she's a She Rose champion. She conducts workshops in schools, colleges, and corporate organizations. Her article and work has been published in most of the leading newspapers. She's mom to 2 humans and 2 adopted canines, and she is a HR by profession. So warm welcome, Simran, and thanks for accepting my invitation in a short notice and accepting to do this session. A very warm welcome to Healthy Bridge Bites.
Much, Sabina, for having me here. And thank you for a wonderful introduction. I think, a lot of what I do is obviously connected to a wonderful mom bakers community and healthy baking. So I'm looking forward to speaking to you about, areas that are important from a healthy baking point of view, from the community point of view, anything that, your viewers who are seeing this or who are going to see this afterwards and have questions about, I'm more than happy to answer those.
Yes, sure. So while starting, how did you get into healthy baking? Because how do you think it's been there in India and how long it's been there in India and how you were introduced to healthy baking?
So I think my personal healthy baking journey started about 10 years ago, when I started doing some level of baking, and it grew more in the last 7-8 years, because of my son. So my son was born in 2012, and by the time he turned a year old, so by 2013, I was looking for options where, because he was obviously, after he turned a year old, he was eating a little bit of things, alternatively. So I wanted to understand what can I give him which is healthy. And I saw around me, I saw a lot of children who were eating baked goods which were coming from the shop, and obviously parents also not being aware of what exactly it contains. But because what happens with toddlers and small children is they tend to not eat big meals, they eat snacking stuff, right? I didn't want to give was coming from the store because I was reading the labels and I was seeing what it contains. So, which is when I started healthy baking and started exploring alternative flours, non-refined sugar, so no refined white sugar kind of baking. Seeing if he will, start adopting a healthier way of eating the baked goods, which most children enjoy. And I think it was good for me because I started very early on with him, and that led me to do a lot of experimenting. And then I thought that, this is something that I want to share with a bigger audience, because like I was when I was looking for those recipes, and like, connecting back to your question about its presence in India, its presence in India is very, very low. Okay, it's the awareness about healthy baking has been very low for many, many years. It's not been there. So if you talk to somebody about baking, all they imagine is, cakes
Yeah.
with loads of icing,
It's
or lots of color.
in cuisines and Western recipes, right? Baking is mostly Western.
Correct. Correct. And they never think that a bake can be healthy, because in their mind, baking is related to maida, it's related to white sugar, lot of fat, so how can actually, something like that be healthy, right? So the awareness about healthy baking is very, very low. But I have seen that in the last few years, I mean, I'm sure OMBC has had some small role to play, but there is more awareness about alternative flours. There is more awareness about natural sweeteners and how we can use that in baking. So those things have become a little better in the last few years. But in the early initial stages, I found it very difficult to even get when I was looking for a recipe, I would never find it because there was no such recipe. So yeah, so that's how it's been.
Okay. And the most common question I get asked is, as you know, my channel is mostly about healthy baking and healthy cooking. So
Right.
when I use butter and fat, other fats and jaggery instead of refined sugar, still how it is considered to be healthy? That's the common question I get asked. And you still are using chemicals like baking powder and baking soda. So how
Right.
exactly is it healthy?
So I think, see, the most important thing to remember is that the biggest switch in healthy baking is the flour. Okay, because most of the bakes that you make will, the largest proportion of that bake is what? It's the flour that you're using. So the moment you switch the flour and make it healthy, it has automatically become healthy because the biggest part of your cake. So if your cake, for example, if you're baking a cake, what is the maximum amount that you're going to be using of? You'll be using atta most or maida most if you're making an unhealthy version of it, right? So if the moment you switch the maida into, say, another flour which is healthy, it automatically becomes healthy because the majority of your bake has already moved off from something which is refined.
Hmm.
Okay, that's one. The second is that things like butter are not used in huge proportions.
Hmm.
So there are, whether it is butter, whether it is nut dairy butter or nut butter, whether it is different kinds of oils, whether it is ghee, the amount that is used is very small. Okay, so it's not a big amount that is going into a cake or a biscuit or a bread. Okay, in fact, in breads and all, it's very, very minimal.
Very minimal.
So yeah, so the point is that again is something that's not excessively making your bake unhealthy, right? The third thing about jaggery or alternative sweeteners. Now, refined white sugar is not just refined, okay? It is highly chemicalized, okay? It is highly bleached, all right? So the moment you switch to unrefined, you're not only getting something which is in its original form. The jaggery that we use is unrefined, and it contains nutrition value or nutrients that is originally already present in it. You're not stripping it of that because you're not processing it. So that's why your bake becomes healthy. Your bake becomes healthy also because you're not using a form of sweetener like white sugar which has chemicals in it. Okay, so these are the reasons why these components continue to make your bake healthy. And lastly, about baking powder and baking soda, how much do we actually use in a huge? Again, the same thing. It's a very small quantity. And in a lot of cases, like cookies, a lot of cookies are baked without baking soda also. I mean, I personally bake it without baking powder and baking soda.
Hmm.
And a lot of bakers who are able to understand some techniques of healthy baking will be slowly moving towards baking it without these.
Yeah,
In a cake also,
in my channel,
sorry.
which doesn't have baking powder and baking soda, the
Correct.
cookies and the vegan cookies, gluten-free cookies, everything is available on our channel without baking powder and baking soda.
Correct. So that's what, so there is hardly use of baking powder, baking soda, in all of that. And even if you're using in the cake, like I said, the baking powder, usually most people use baking powder and it's very minimal. And I'm not sure, yesterday in the live, I don't know if you saw what Jiva mentioned, that you pick up something from outside. If you see 15 different things in your label, there is a problem. So the point is here, even if you put everything down, to what you have in your bake, it is absolutely clean, absolutely, there are no chemicals that are coming in as 5 different additives into your bake.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's why it continues to remain healthy.
So basically, healthy people mean calories wise. So this is not about calories. This is about not consuming unhealthy things or like toxins
Yeah,
or chemicals, unnecessary toxins or chemicals. That's
yeah.
how we describe healthy baking, not like
Correct.
calories based.
Yeah, I think we are over involved in thinking about chemicals. Sorry, over involved in thinking about calories, and we forget about the chemicals. Actually, it should be the reverse.
Mm-hmm.
We should be thinking more about chemicals and what we are putting into our body. Calories will adjust themselves when they whatever we are doing. It's not something that is a huge concern.
So still, it should be consumed in moderation, even though it's healthy.
Everything should be, yes,
Still it has calories, but we are not
correct, absolutely.
chemicals. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Also with healthy baking, Sabina, I think one thing I'd like to clarify, that what you brought up about moderation is very important, because a lot of people also think that because it's healthy, we should
mhm.
eat it every day.
Yeah,
Okay. So that's not really something that, we need to, why would I eat a cake every day? Okay. I would not. And I will not feed my child a cake every day either, even if it is healthy. So I think even with healthy baking, we have to be mindful that we need to continue to remain to eat it in moderation.
Okay. While coming when we are talking about chemicals, now this organic word has become a buzz, and and we rarely know how authentic it is. So there are sulfur-free sugars, there are refined, unrefined, sulfur-free, and so many tags it comes up with. So how do we find the authenticity of the products?
So, see, I think organic is something, you're right. There's a lot of gray area when we talk about organic, because we don't know what is the origin of it. Okay, so I think while it's very, very difficult actually to evaluate, a couple of things that really help is, one is, what are the certifications that have come in. It's not like, just saying organic doesn't work. There are certain range of certifications that are involved for a product to be proclaimed as organic, and those are very strong and stringent, at least in other countries. So it's very important to check about the certifications that that product has received from an organic point of view, because and what are those certifications? Are those just random certifications, or are those actual authentic good certifications? And secondary research on the internet will tell you that. So you should be able to quickly find that out, find out about the certifications immediately. One is that. The second is, try to find out the history of the brand. So I always say that you should know, like we try to find out where our food is coming from, right? So try to find out what is the history of this brand. Now brands have become very conscious of sharing where they're sourcing their raw material from. Like today in the morning, I was reading, I was seeing one brand. It was talking about how the origin of the coffee beans, and where exactly in not Karnataka, where exactly in Kerala are they growing it, and what is the name of the estate also. So the point is that do your research on your own as well, about tracing back the history of the brand. Okay, the more you trace it back, the more you'll know that originally where they're working and what they're doing and how authentic they are in their journey of being organic. Okay, so spend that time instead of just picking up anything from the shelf, or picking up any big brand, or going and just any somebody's told you, so you just take it. Spend that, become a discerning consumer. That's the only way you will be able to understand what is genuinely organic.
And how about sourcing it local? Because local farmers are not aware of the certifications and all those things. And one question is, when these big brands show all this authentication and all those things, the cost adds up to the consumer. At the end, organic product becomes very costly. So many of them are able to access it. And when we local, so they might tell verbally it's organic and it's grown in such a way. We don't have any history about them unless and until we meet them personally. We don't have any history about them. So, and there are many places. While in metros, it's easily available in any supermarket. So in small places, many things or organic things are not available. When we go local, how to know the authenticity, or like how to go
So I think that is where the local brands actually come into play, because see, the big brands, like I said, so you're right, the big brands will have their way of getting certifications done, and obviously that adds up to the cost, and sometimes it makes it more difficult to purchase that product. Locally, I would suggest, so again, one of I'll give you an example. So in Bangalore, there's this social enterprise. It's called Buffalo Back Collective. Okay, so they work with women farmers all across Banerghatta in local produce, local grains, local flours, okay, and entirely organic. Now the point is that that's the other route of finding out, because the farmers themselves will not always, like you rightly said, sometimes they'll be following it, sometimes they will not. You need an impartial body in the middle who is able to understand and assess, on one hand, understand and assess what's happening, and second, also guide the farmers towards that way of living back, because that was originally the way we were growing crops, right? So and maintaining produce. So that's the other way of going through that. So what Buffalo Back Collective does is, it works with these people, the farmers, educates them also on organic farming practices, and therefore builds in a whole chain of products. So they are able to guide their produce into the market through their own channels. Very limited stock. It's not excessively available all over the world. It's not something that you will get, like I said, so you will not be able to pick it up in a supermarket. You will need to only go and get it from Buffalo Bag Collective's one store, which is there, or online. They are selling some of it online. So the thing is that the smaller, my sense is that the smaller it is, okay, the higher the effort. Okay, and therefore the higher their need to sell authentic products, because they want to bring their product out in the market. They want to become visible. They want to put it in front of the consumer. So there is a very low likelihood of too much contamination happening there. Okay, so which is essentially, one of the ways in which people can actually reach out to such small social enterprises, which are not big brands, but they're social enterprises working actually in the benefit of the farmer as well as in the benefit of the consumer. Okay, so that again, like I said, those are very localized. So there are these groups have to be found. You have to actually research in whichever part of the country you are in, find out about those groups, and check up about how they're helping farmers. You'll find that the more you search for it, the more you'll find it. People are, in fact, now the good part is that because people are becoming more more aware, they're asking more questions. So farms have also started opening up. So for example, a few days back, I was looking for kapli wheat. You get it on Amazon, okay? But the farm that you get it from has started sharing information directly on their social media pages also, about their practices, about how the farmers grow it. And a lot of that is difficult to do it with, unless they're actually doing it. So they are actually doing it on ground, and I think that sort of helps to be to start looking at more localized products. I know the risk is that maybe they're not following it, but like I said, if you are able to do it through a group like that, then it helps you to validate that.
Okay, so basically go local and with some good source, like authentic source. Okay.
Very important.
What is the biggest myth about healthy baking?
That it is not tasty. I think that is very easy for me to answer. I think most people, are you sure it's going to taste all right? Are you sure it's going to be delicious? I think the biggest myth is that, that, wow, if it's healthy, it is definitely not going to taste, delicious. And I think that is something that most bakers who test products will definitely be able to tell that, how their clients react to it, and how some clients are shocked that it actually is so healthy and so yum. So I think these are things that that's the biggest myth I have ever heard of.
The other question is why to go for healthy baking for a celebration? It's once in a year, or maybe there is a family of four. There's going to be like totally 5 occasions, like 4 birthdays and 1 anniversary. So why to go for a healthy baking? Why not go for a non-dairy whipping cream?
Because my sense, see, my thing is that healthy baking is not about when can I cheat on this meal. Okay, it's a way of life. Okay, so the moment you think of it as a way of life, you will go towards it naturally. The point is that I'm not thinking of healthy baking as a special thing to do on many days. That's why I need to take a break from it. Okay, and do something else on a special day. Healthy baking is part of my life naturally. If it is like eating, don't we cook fresh food every day? We cook fresh, right? Do we say no, we will cook fresh food and a different kind of food only on different special food made with XYZ things only on a celebration? No. So the point is that the more you normalize it in your life, the more normal it'll become for you. For us to eat, any of my kids are not able to eat. They have gone to parties and they have removed the icing and they've said that we cannot eat this cake. So the point is that is big, even though it's a celebration, even though there are other kids who are eating, the point is that is where we need to get to, because it has to become naturally part of our life. And why do we want to give our health a break? Our health should be a priority every single day, right? Especially on a day of celebration, our health should be a priority.
Yeah,
we should celebrate the day with celebrating our health.
So basically, people when it mind for baking, it's mostly cakes and pastries, those kind of things. So breads are also come under healthy baking. Pizzas,
right.
Like it can be made with whole wheat bread, whole wheat flour and other flours. And especially breads also can be made and consumed as a daily basis thing, right?
Right.
Okay. So what are the alternate flours? The most asked question, alternate flours and alternate sweeteners.
So there are a whole lot of alternate flours actually. You can, broadly divide them into grain-based flours. So grain-based flours are flours like atta, so whole wheat, or your ragi. So basically, those are grain-based flours, which are alternative flours or jowar. Then you have seed-based flours, so sunflower seed, flour. You get it. You can make it at home. Flaxseed flour. Then you have nut-based flours. So you have almond flour, you have coconut flour, works beautifully. You have plant-based flours. So you get flour that you can make from amaranth seeds. You can make, flour from buckwheat, kuttu atta. So, you get barley is another grain that is used in flour in grain-based flours. So this, like I said, so I mean, if you see, I've categorized 4 categories already, and under each of them, I've only named 2, 3, but you will have many, 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 many flours. So there is just no limit.
Needed to with baking, and you can use any flour which
Any
is
flour. Yeah. Any flour which is available to you in your local market, you should use.
okay. And what are the alternate sweeteners?
So again, so there are 2 types. Usually in my mind, I always divide them as 2 types. One is which is solid and one is liquid. So the solid sweeteners are your unrefined jaggery, your coconut sugar, cane sugar, khansari, all of these. Your country sugar, you get something called country sugar. So all of these are unrefined forms of solid sweeteners. The liquid sweeteners are liquid jaggery. You have brown rice syrup. You have honey for people who bake with honey, and then of course people who are diabetics or they want to do diabetic friendly baking, then you have plant-based sweeteners like stevia. So everything is available. The range is very, very wide here also.
But we have to be just mindful about picking the right thing, because there are now in the market called brown sugar, which is just coated on refined sugar.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Coated. So we have to be really
correct. Very
mindful
aware. Yes,
while we are buying.
very, very true.
Hmm. So what are the alternate fats?
So alternate fats again. So I mean, for people who don't want to bake with dairy, right? Dairy-based butter, ghee is a very good fat. I don't know why people think ghee is a bad word. Ghee is a very, very good fat to use, especially if you're baking for kids, because kids will be they need that level of energy. It gives them it's a very good, very, very form of healthy fat actually, especially if you can make it at home. Then you have the nut-based butters are there. So you have almond butter, you have peanut butter, you have cashew butter, you have coconut butter. Every form of nut butters are available. You have flavorless oils. So use cold pressed or wood pressed because those are usually healthier and they're not that refined. So any cold pressed oil which is neutral tasting, like a sunflower or or a rice bran, even coconut oil for that matter, as long as it's cold pressed, does not have a strong aftertaste. So all of those will work absolutely fine in baking. You have fruit based fat, you have vegetable based fat. So fruit based fat like avocado is used for as a fat. Applesauce is used as a fat. So there's a huge range, so we can use any of these. So you see the flour, so many healthy flours, so many healthy sweeteners, so many healthy fats. You just need to figure out permutation combinations and see which one will work with what.
You have to do the experiment and you have to be open to the taste.
Very true. Absolutely. That's precisely the most important 2 things, that you need to experiment and you need to be open.
And what are the misconceptions about butter and ghee?
So I think the issue with butter, I think, emerges from the fact that a lot of people think it's adulterated, and I understand that. I think there is some level of adulteration that happens in a lot of dairy products. So I was saying that with butter especially, I think people are worried about the adulteration levels because a lot of the dairy products have some level of adulteration. So if you see the milk and all that we get in the market, some level of adulteration is there, right? So which is, I think, the reason why people are hesitant with butter. And the quality, it's also the quality of the butter that we get in the market. So if it is homemade butter, one, it's very healthy. Okay, so if you make it at home, it's very healthy. I know it's very difficult for most people to make it at home, which is why we depend on outside, butter. So at that point in time, the good thing to do is to pick up the unsalted one. Okay, because the unsalted one and because the unsalted one ensures that white salt is not there, and the white one ensures that there is no usage of excessive color or additional flavors and all of that. Okay, so that is one safe thing to keep in mind. The second is that with ghee, essentially, again, ghee is a very good fat. So as long as you're looking at pure ghee, so it always comes down to the sauce. So like you'd earlier said, the same thing, that the sauce is very important. So if you are able to source it from a good place, make sure you do that. Make sure you check on that. If you're not able to, if you're not able to make it at home, if you're able to make it at home, that's the best option with ghee. So I think these couple of things we need to keep in mind, because they are good fats to use in cakes, in cookies. They work beautifully. So there is, unless you're vegan, it should work fine.
Okay. So coming to vegan and gluten-free, what are the options available? Vegan butters, and why this sudden urge in vegan nowadays in India, especially during this pandemic?
So I'm not sure actually why there is an uprise in the trend from that perspective. I just feel that people are just trying to explore different things which they feel are going to increase their or improve their health in general. So, and I think since traditionally we associate, healthy eating or healthy consumption with vegetables and fruits and plants, that's probably why there is an uptick in the vegan eating trend. That's one. The second is, like I said, our dairy industry has huge amount of adulteration. So going vegan is more about, removing the dairy from our food. So whether it's milk, I've seen so many people and so many children turning lactose intolerant because of the hormones that are present in the milk. So milk, the hormones that are added to our milk or to the cow is all passing on to us when we are consuming it. So I think that adulteration now people have started becoming aware of, which is the other reason why people have started moving away from dairy products also to a large extent. To avoid consuming something which has so much of so much of additional things added.
So much of adulteration. So how does healthy baking evolved, and especially in your case, because you started this community just to help out moms and to share recipes.
Correct.
So you are
Right.
working with many NGOs, and luckily I was able to be a part of it in a small way. But how healthy baking became got related to NGO and how it helped?
So I think, so when I was baking, even before I started OMBC, when I was doing my own baking through Wonderful, which was a social enterprise for myself, I was baking for social impact. So my journey with Oh Wonderful I started Oh Wonderful to of course share recipes, but at the same time I was training some girls I was in Gurgaon at that time, and I was training some girls doing in baking. And these girls were actually from rural areas, around Gurgaon. So there were 12 of them. They'd finished their exams and they wanted to learn some vocational skill which they can use for getting a job. And they were all from obviously low income backgrounds, looking to learn a skill which can allow them to become financially independent. So which is where I realized that, at some stage I was already doing that on my own. And when OMBC started, I realized that let me see. So initially it was just trial and error. So I just tried to see if people will respond. So I just shared about, something that we wanted to do from a social impact point of view, that I felt, I wanted to check if other bakers wanted to do it along with me. And it just took off from there. So I think that's when I realized, and, I say this over and over again, that every person, wants to do something. They want to do something good. They want to make a difference to this world. They just don't know how. They just need an avenue, they just need a channel, they just need a little bit of idea and goal. The moment that's there, they will do it, in their own way. They will do it with their own kindness, and they will do it. So I think that is something that OMBC has taught me. And I realized that, every time I would share something related to healthy baking plus using it for some social impact work, whether it's an NGO, whether it's direct distribution, whether it is fundraising or a bake sales, any of that, the response was tremendous. And I think because of the tremendous response and the way the bakers reacted, I figured that, we can do it on a long-term basis, sustainably, over a period of time. We can do it in, bigger groups, in bigger places, more cities, more countries, So that's how it started.
Okay, okay. So how did it impact the women? Because that was to empower them and make them independent. So did they really make a good living out of healthy baking? And
So I think one of the biggest examples.
what was the people's response then when they were selling, or they when they were, because as you said they were from rural area, and their reach will
Yeah,
be very limited and around them. So how did they
correct.
customers respond to them?
No, so that's what, so my role was primarily just to teach them healthy baking. And I'm sure the NGO would have taken it a step forward, but I moved out of Gurgaon. So I moved to Bangalore. So I'm sure, so they did some work, but I'm not, I wasn't actively involved in it after I finished teaching them. But I think from the point of view of being able to sell healthy bakes, I think that is one thing that we've seen with the Freedom Project India here in Bangalore, where we trained some 7, 8 girls who had been rescued from human trafficking, and they were trained on healthy baking by us, and they have their own baking cooperative now, being guided by the NGO, and they're running it really well. They cater to parties, they cater to schools, they sell, so, and healthy bakes, so I think there is definitely potential. It really depends on, making sure that we are able to train enough, women to go ahead with it.
Okay. Well, it will be like a trendsetter and bringing in new trends.
That's the hope.
So, okay, related to healthy baking, what is the most common question you have been asked?
I think the most common question has actually been primarily what you asked me, the first one, that, why did I start baking healthy? When did I start baking healthy? So I think the why and when is essentially what I get asked the most.
Okay, related to recipes, what is the most common questions asked?
Related to recipes, yeah, so related to recipes, I think the first thing they ask is there a specific recipe you can suggest which I should start with, or how should I start? So should I just pick up a recipe and do it as it is, or should I pick up a regular recipe and try to do the substitutions? If I do the substitutions, what should I substitute first? How to manage that change? So I think those things I usually get asked. Yeah.
Okay. And before we move to your book series, so what is the key point to be kept in mind while doing healthy baking?
I think the key thing to keep in mind,
And related to the end product.
I think the biggest thing to keep in mind is that, in fact, you've covered that very well yourself, that you need to experiment, okay, and you need to be very open to the fact that it's going to be tasting different. It's good, but it's going to be a good different. So you don't assume that it's not going to taste delicious. It's going to be delicious. It's just going to be a little different from what you've tasted in the past. Okay, that's one thing. And the second is experimenting is very important in healthy baking. Without experimenting, you're not going to be able to move ahead. And thirdly, I think very important to keep in mind that don't lose heart, so be firm, be consistent, keep trying, don't think that, okay, one bake is not work, let me not do it, forget it. No, be consistent, be mindful, make notes from every previous experiment or issues that you have faced in that, and try to rectify it in the next one.
So basically, taste it as a new recipe instead of comparing to a previous like maida based or bakery based. To enjoy as a new recipe, maybe you can name it yourself and enjoy as a new recipe, because what the bakery serves is a completely different recipe, and what we make at home is a completely different recipe. So what I tell my
Absolutely.
kids and my customers is to enjoy like a new um, recipe, not compare to the
Absolutely.
products that is entirely different. That this you should have with a new viewpoint.
Very true.
Okay. So to make the baker's life easy, you are bringing in book series, right? So tell me more about your books.
So this was conceptualized primarily during the pandemic, of course, and I think we launched it last year, June. And the publisher had got in touch with me and said that, there's nothing like this in the market, and you have a lot of talent in one single place. Why don't we do something? So and also connected to social impact, because that's a big primary theme also on OMBC. So that's when all those three things came together in my mind. I realized that, yeah, there is a need for something like this in the market, because a lot of people, when I started also doing just even initial baking, I referred a lot of books. So not everybody really just goes online and looks at blogs, right? A lot of people love looking at books and seeing how it's done there, or seeing
But
referring to it.
yeah.
So, so which is why I thought that it's a good idea to have something like that, because there's nothing like that in the market. And secondly, because our bakers need a platform beyond OMBC, which makes the world know about, the kind of talent they have. And thirdly, it can become a very, very important way of raising awareness about, a couple of NGOs that are doing great work.
Okay, so what are the things we can expect from the books?
So there are 250 recipes across 5 big themes, and it's basically categorized into 3 books. One is sweet, one is savory and one pot meals, and the third one is vegan and gluten free. And all of them, across all 3 books, you have 250 recipes, 100 bakers who've participated. We have close to over 100 knowledge pages, so just not just recipes. You have sections which talk about ingredients, sections which talk about what kinds of things to use, sections which talk about how to incorporate different elements to make your baking healthy. So it's extremely comprehensive from that point of view. We have expert recipes. So expert recipes are there from a couple of very well-known food specialists, nutritionists. So we have expert recipes from them. So it's a consolidation of all of that. And we've just started the process of printing, and dispatching starts next week. And we've also listed it on Amazon finally. So I
Okay,
think, yeah.
available for viewers on Amazon. So I'll be giving the link below description box, and you're in a hurry, you can even buy on stonemill.com, right? So I'll give both the links. So part of this is contributed to the NGO. Is there any specific NGO, Simran?
So we are looking at 2 NGOs. One is based in southern India, Bangalore and southern India, called Swabhiman, which we have done a lot of work with in the past, and which is doing a lot of work in terms of covering needs of people who are from low income backgrounds, whether it's children, whether it's women, whether it's men who are out of work, from not just a food point of view, but also from their education, from their medical care, vaccinations also right now. So all of that, and they've been doing that for years now. So we are trying to support their work through the sales proceeds, and the work of an NGO in the north, which is called Let's Educate Children in Need, which works again with children from an education point of view, educating children who are in slum communities, also involving their mothers in teaching, so that their mothers become financially independent, and the childhood, and emphasizing not just on education, but things like early childhood development for children in those areas, because they will not even get access to basic education, or even support from a child development point of view. So all of that, in fact, in the COVID situation, they've also done extensive amount of food distribution, grocery distribution, healthcare work in these slums. So that's how these 2 NGOs are what we're going to support.
So not only we are getting healthy recipes, but again we are sharing our bit towards our
Yeah,
community and making someone else's life also healthy.
absolutely.
That's very nice talking to you, Simran. Thank you so much for taking the time out. And would you like to tell a few words, closing note to our viewers?
So I think I had a great time, and Sabina, thank you for asking me some very important questions. I hope I've answered things that people are most interested in about healthy baking, and I'm hoping to see many, many more trying to bake healthy.
Definitely, definitely. Our channel is also there to help them out with many recipes, and your group is there, which I'm also proudly a part of it, and proudly a part to be in Swabhiman Trust and Kritangya Trust. So it's a really great opportunity to have you on my channel. Thank you so much, Simran.
Thank you. Take care.